Today we're going to be speaking with the management of one of the darling stocks of the market from private banking space. A stock which has added immense wealth for shareholders last 25 years of its existence and carved out a name for itself in the sector, particularly under the leadership of Mr. Romesh Sobti. So before we chat with him on this momentous occasion, let's take it across to Ajay Sharma, my colleague, and get a perspective on some of its performance metrics in the period of last 25 years. Ajay?
Well, that's correct. When wealth creation subject comes up, there are a couple of Indian stocks which really come on the radar, which have been big compounders over decades, and IndusInd Bank is one such stock. It got listed in 98, formed in 1994, and since then, this stock has consistently given returns for shareholders and created wealth. Over 19% compounded growth is the kind of return which it has generated for its shareholders. People who have held on to this stock over periods of time, long periods of time, have been rewarded. In fact, if you just look at the, every 100 rupee or any 100 rupee which was invested in IndusInd Bank at that time has become almost over 3,400 rupees in this last, 20-year time. Not only about return, even the business metrics, if you see, have really grown. The profitability over the last over 20 years have grown at an average of almost 25%. The loan book, which almost stands at a shade lower than 2 lakh crore, has grown with a CAGR of 27-28% in this last period. So, the business growth and the return for shareholders have actually come in tandem over a period of time, and that's why now that it's completing 25 years in business, it merits a look and the kind of shareholder returns it has created over that period of time.
Between 2008 and 2018, the CAGR return of the market cap has been 41%. So 25 years for IndusInd Bank. What a wealth creation it's been in last 10 years. Some would say that a lot has happened because of the man whom we would be interacting with, Romesh Sobti. I'm sure it's a very satisfying feeling, Mr. Sobti, to see the bank where it is now versus where it was when you took over the reins.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm just saying that I'm sure this must be a very satisfying feeling to see the kind of numbers my colleague Ajay just alluded to, the market cap return, the CAGR growth, the wealth it has created, because the magic has really happened in last 10 years. Do you think you could have done better? Are you satisfied with your performance?
Yeah. Well, you could always say you could do better. But I think the management team has reason to be satisfied with what we have achieved. But the past 10 years is history, and we like to talk more about the next 10 years, or at least the next 5 years, on what we could do going forward.
So next 5 years, Mr. Sobti, if you have to talk about it, I'm afraid it may be a bank which could be run by a new man on the hot seat. So that is something which markets really want to understand, that because what will change if you decide to move on, one, and B, the reason why everybody is so curious to understand the leadership here is because leadership matters. We've seen that happening to best of the private banks, where how change of leadership have really created a broke in the franchise.
Yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer here, because people tend to ascribe leadership to one person, and leadership is sort of very well widespread, and the whole ecosystem actually works together to deliver these sort of results. So to ascribe everything to one person, it's flattering, one likes it, but that's not the way actually things work on the ground. And I think the 15-member management team of IndusInd Bank, who've been together, and not one of them has left in the last 11 years or so, they should take full credit for it. So I think leadership gets diffused and spread out, and that's what you really call a team who has a common sort of compelling objective, and that objective becomes institutionalized. Some of the practices have become institutionalized over the last 10 or 11 years. So a change of the CEO doesn't necessarily mean a change of direction, etc. I think the basic culture of performance that and delivery and execution that has been instilled in the last 10 or 11 years, that will not change. Thought and action probably will follow almost the same route, because there has been a complete buy-in on the strategies of the bank by the entire management team. So I think that's how the board and the management team will bring continuity of thought and action in the performance. And I'm very confident, whether one person is here or not, that delivery will happen along the same lines.
Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Sobti, for completing 25 years. Shall we say happy birthday, 25th birthday, that is, to IndusInd Bank?
Yes, thank you. We have completed 25 years, and there's a campaign which is running, which the slogan is that we are just 25.
Indeed, silver going on golden, right. But you know, just to clear the air on what Nikunj was talking about with you, Mr. Sobti, do tell us, when is it that your term comes to an end? Because whatever said and done, your shareholders would like to see you at the helm of running this great organization that you've created.
Yeah, well, you know, the term ends at the age of 70 as things stand today. And that is really near the end of March of 2020. And keeping that deadline in mind, the board has been sort of very strongly and thoroughly engaged in the whole question of succession. And succession is not just about the CEO succession, but also, I think, the direct reports of the CEO. And over the last 3-4 years, there has been a very strong process of grooming, identification and grooming that has happened. Therefore, there's, I think, a comfortable feeling that we will be able to provide the continuity that shareholders, investors, stakeholders, employees would sort of seek from the current management.
So you're basically indicating that it's an internal candidate who will step into your shoes and would be promoted in that sense.
I think there are more chances of continuity of thought and action through internal candidates. But I'm quite sure the board is also going to look externally. And then if there's somebody who fits the bill from outside also, I think they will consider it. Personally, we feel that we have created a very, very strong bench strength within the bank, not only at the level of the CEO, but the next tier as well, and the next year as well. So I think there are chances, the chances of an internal candidate are stronger than an external candidate.
Mr. Sobti, hi there, good morning. Even shareholders have been lauding this journey of IndusInd Bank. In fact, 100 rupees invested in the year 1998 has now grown 34 times. So that has definitely been something very noteworthy. But let's talk about the road ahead then for the bank. Give us a sense as to what the outlook is on your stressed assets, on your total provisioning going ahead, your loan book growth. I know I've piled on a lot of questions, but you know, if we could just get a sense in terms of the run rate that we can see on these parameters.
See, I think through thick and thin over the last 10-11 years, we've seen 2 or 3 turns of the cycle. And we've been able to sort of navigate through these turns and still delivered a growth of upwards of 25% CAGR on almost all the performance vectors that you would want to see. Going forward, it is our estimate that the operating environment for banks, fueled by a lot many things like banking reforms, etc., is improving. For us, we have found a new frontier, which is rural India, which we were struggling with over the last 2 or 3 years on how to do coverage of rural India, because we've seen rural India starting to bubble. And we would now address this through the acquisition and the merger of Bharat Financial Inclusion, which is now in the last stages. That gives us a huge platform for addressing the growing needs, financial needs of rural India. So that's going to form one of the big pillars of our growth going forward, 1, 2, 3, 5 years, etc. That's one. Then I think organically there are some businesses which are still subscale, which we are growing now at a much stronger pace than the normal growth of 25% for the book as a whole. For instance, non-vehicle retail, which we started building about 3-4 years ago, that book is growing upwards of 35%. And so there are 8 or 9 products which we want to scale up there. Even in the vehicle retail, we entered new markets like tractors, for instance, 3-4 years ago, where we have brought scale, but we can do much more. So that's the organic part of our businesses. And of course, we have articulated our desire to do parabanking as well, because we are pretty decent distributors of third-party products like insurance, asset management, also brokerage. And certainly it would be our desire that we extend this distribution domain knowledge that we have now to manufacturing. That means going into life, non-life, asset management, brokerage, etc. But that of course is subject to regulatory approvals, etc. But that's certainly a very strong dot on our radar screen, which is parabanking. So I think these will form 3 or 4 of our this thing. Then of course this whole thing about digitization, front office, mid office, back office, is going to be a sort of a tsunami, which will have a strong impact on productivity and delivery and client acquisition, etc. So these are 3 or 4 sort of pillars of our growth going forward, both organic and inorganic.
The way I look at Mr. Sobti is that you managed to really ride the retail bandwagon. The retail sector was opening up. PSUs banks were leaving that space. Private banks like yours, HDFC Bank and Kotak, they've benefited. But where do you think the growth will now top out? And as a bank, you've consciously stayed away from buying an insurance company or creating an insurance business. I distinctly remember we had a conversation on the same forum a couple of years ago, and you said that, look, I'm not going to do anything which will cost me a cash burn in the short term. I will not make large investments in insurance. Will that remain the stated policy, or there is reason for you to change, and if there's reason for you to revisit it now?
I think there's strong reason to revisit that, Nikunj. You're right that in the initial years we thought we will do distribution and not get into manufacturing, because manufacturing, for instance, for insurance, had huge capital outlays to begin with, and we had just about enough capital to sort of grow the bank. Now a couple of things have changed in the market. For instance, our distribution valuations are pretty strong. We have knowledge now of domain knowledge of that particular businesses, and the way things work in India, the manufacturers sort of get a higher valuation than distributors do, and therefore I think this desire now to also do manufacturing, which is getting into insurance. Organically, we are still not interested to do this organically. But now, you see, the whole scenario of insurance, for instance, has changed pretty dramatically. There are lots of players who are now willing to partner and allow for the valuation of your distribution businesses. So the capital outlays, therefore, have reduced pretty dramatically. Run rates on capital and the burn rates on capital have actually stabilized, etc. So I think this is the right time, and there is a churn going on in the sector per se. Mostly on MNCs and all. A lot of them have exited, a lot of them want to come back. So it now makes sense, and it is our sensing that it will not dilute our capital by any significant amount if we were to do all these 3 businesses together.
Right. Mr. Sobti, in just a yes or no, is the IL&FS adjustment behind us?
Yes, it will be behind us this quarter. That means the quarter ended. So we'll start the new financial year
on a clean slate.
With a clean slate.
Okay, great to hear that. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and many congratulations and happy birthday once again from all of us. That's Mr. Sobti highlighting what the next journey for IndusInd Bank is going to be like now that it's been a momentous occasion, 25 years, silver going on golden.